Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out for our group author reading. This reading is brought to you by Strong Women, Strange Worlds, which is a group of authors supporting authors. Our mission is to elevate the voices of women and other underrepresented gender identity authors in science fiction, fantasy, and horror through events like our bi-monthly virtual quick reads sessions. You can find out more about Strong Women, Strange Worlds in the handout that is provided in the chat, and also by visiting the website. We're going to put the website link in there. It is strongwomenstrangeworlds.weebly.com. I would also like to take a moment to thank anybody out there who has been able to make a tip jar donation to keep our readings running. We really appreciate that very much. So my name is Elaine Isaak, and I'm going to be your host today. You'll also find out more about me in the provided handout. I did note earlier that I have started a recording. However, recording of this session by the audience is not allowed. Recording of electronic communications, including Zoom meetings and webinars, without permission is illegal. So just please keep that in mind. Today's reading, we are featuring 6 authors: A.F. Stewart, Zelda Knight, Lydia Prime, Trish Wilson, Holley Cornetto, and Violet Castro. Each author will have 8 minutes to read. So, our first reader today is A.F. Stewart. A steadfast sci-fi and fantasy geek, A.F. Stewart was born and raised in Nova Scotia, Canada, and still calls it home. She favors the dark and deadly when writing, and as an indie author, she's published novels, novellas, and short story collections with a few side trips into poetry. Anita, take it away.
Okay, hi. I'll be reading from the short story, The Cold, Dark Heart of the Forest, from Visions and Nightmares. It peered into the shroud of night, its yellow eyes staring through an infinity of inky black. It discerned shadows and silhouettes cast by the hinterland forest, fluttering against a blanketing cover of winter. The wind blew across its back, but it felt no cold. It smiled and slavered its jaws, its fetid breath puffed chalky vapor. With every gnash of its bloody, jagged teeth, wheezing pants kept rhythm with a growling stomach. It shifted position, crouched on its skeletal thin haunches, and sniffed the air. The other was here as well, in the wind. Yes, I am here. The cycle begins again. It thrashed its head and scrabbled at the snowy ground. An eager growl rumbled in the back of its throat. Time to hunt. The wind nibbled at her skin, bitter and frosty, even through her parka and scarf. Olivia wanted to be back in the tent, relatively warm and asleep. Or better yet, at home, drinking beer and watching the hockey game. Not traipsing through the North Canadian woods on a winter night because her partner heard something and needed to check on the equipment. Of course, it was her fault. She volunteered to emulate a popsicle while babysitting climate monitors. She knew the environmental research project was important, but still. Olivia shook her head. Too late for wishes. The flashlight beam wavered as she stomped her feet and rubbed her gloved hands together. Are you finished yet? I'm freezing my butt off, Noah. Just a minute. The echo of his voice drifted, mixing with the swish of the breeze tickling the ice in the treetops. Yeah, they're fine. We're good, Liv. Great. I told you we had nothing to worry about. In the flashlight's glow, she watched Noah's dim outline as he straightened and saw his familiar smile as he turned to her. Better safe than sorry. Please, it's just you obsessing. Now, if you're done with your paranoia over the sensors, can we get our butts back into the tent before icicles start forming in the wrong places? I'm sure I could find ways to warm you up. Noah smirked suggestively into the flashlight beam. In your dreams. Now, come on. Noah chuckled as he joined her, and they started to trudge back to their camp. You know I don't know why I put up with you. Olivia gave him a friendly nudge. Because you secretly love me, that's why. Olivia huffed and laughed. Inside she cringed, the casual remark hitting closer to home than she cared to admit. She peeked at Noah in a sideways glance, but his attention had turned to the sky. Noah slowed his pace. Hey, is it getting lighter? Yeah, I think it is. The beam of Olivia's flashlight grew dim, barely noticeable. What the? The night erupted into brilliance. Streamers of emerald light tinged in violet illuminated the ebon sky, streaking upward in circular sheets of ghostly radiance. The painted luminosity danced, a writhing, waltzing spectacle of fiery electric particles. The Northern Lights! A shout of glee came from Noah. I don't believe it! Olivia didn't speak as she gazed upward in awe. A tiny cold snowflake landed on her nose, and then another, as a light snowfall descended from the glowing heavens. Olivia stuck out her tongue, as she had when she was a girl. She giggled. This is great! Noah whirled around, doing a lopsided jig. I've always dreamed of seeing them. I know. Olivia rolled her eyes. One of your many obsessions. Oh, come on. I'm not that bad. Really? For a scientist, sometimes you're a bit of a flake. Your ramblings include the Northern Lights, black holes, parallel universe theory, native mythology, cryptozoology, alien life. Okay, you made your point. I have a lot of freaky interests. You gotta admit it, though. The aurora is cool. Look at it. Yeah, it's so lovely. Once in a lifetime. That's right. We have to record this. Come on, we have to get back to camp. Get the camera. Take some pictures. Video. Olivia snapped into research mode as Noah grabbed her arm. Right. We should document this for... What the blazes? Noah, where's the path? It's gone. Huh? What do you mean? It's right over. His words trailed off into the falling snow. A sheen of translucent light barred the way forward. A gleaming, shimmering curtain of energy snaked through the trees, blocking their path. What is that? Noah stood motionless, his mouth agape. I don't know. Olivia heard the trace of fear in her own whisper. I've seen nothing like that before. Maybe an electromagnetic phenomenon? Noah turned to her and grinned. She saw he was loving this. Maybe it's aliens. He wiggled his eyebrows in that annoying way she hated. Or a parallel universe. Stop it. Be serious. What are we going to do about this? How are we going to get past it, back to camp? Always so practical. Loosen up. Why would you want to go back to camp? This is an adventure, an undocumented phenomenon. Look at it. Noah waved his hand and tilted his head toward the spectacle, staring. His body shuddered. Look at it. His voice softened, almost at monotone. It's beautiful. A prickle ran down Olivia's neck. Noah, you okay? He didn't answer her question, but kept staring. He reminded Olivia of a statue. It's so beautiful. He moved a few steps forward. So beautiful. So beautiful. His voice drifted, taking on a dreamy tone. Pulsing, shifting. It's like it's calling to us. He took another step forward. Can you hear it, Liv? Like a melody in light, a siren song. Noah, what are you babbling about? Noah? Noah ignored her and scuttled forward, getting closer to the phenomenon. It's waiting, Liv. Waiting for us. His fingers reached out until they were only centimeters away from the barrier. Okay, and that's the end of the reading. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for listening. And Visions and Nightmares is up for the giveaway, so be sure to sign up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anita. That was fantastic. Of course, you have a whole bunch of people now on tenterhooks wondering what's going to happen. So you can check back and see the conversation that was going on there in the chat. Good stuff. Our second reader today is Zelda Knight. Zelda Knight is a USA Today best-selling author, an award-winning editor, and a diverse bookseller. Zelda co-edited Dominion, an anthology of speculative fiction from Africa and the African diaspora, and Africa Risen, a new era of speculative fiction from Tor.com 2022. Zelda, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Today, I'll be reading from my novelette, Zephyr's Curse, that can stand alone. The paperback is on sale, but I'm giving away a copy today, so make sure to fill out the form. The ebook is free if you sign up for my newsletter, and you can listen to the audiobook narrated by professionals on my YouTube channel at Authors Unite for free. And with that, let's get started. Chapter 1, Zephyr. The unmistakable smell of Fey blood assaulted Zephyr's nose as she rounded a street corner and burst into Lincoln Park Zoo. The sky was pitch black, the stars obscured by rows of wispy fog blotting out the flickering city lights surrounding her. The park itself was lit up like a Christmas tree, devoid of any humans. as the holiday season surrendered itself to the bitter cold that was Chicago-style winters. But none of that really mattered to Zephyr in that moment. The only thing she cared about was putting one foot in front of the other and avoiding being captured. Circling above her, just out of sight, 3 of her fellow winged shifters were stalking her. Scratch that, she thought as she dove into a bush to escape the talons of a swooping harpy. They're trying to kill me, not capture me alive. Zephyr rolled into her back and got back to her feet, zigzagging through the winding curves of the Free City Zoo, pounding the cobblestone pavement so hard she was certain rocks were dislodging from the ground. Her chest heaved, thin black shirt soaked in sweat, 2 tight blue jeans cutting into her thighs, as Zephyr finally arrived at the zoo's Swan Pond, one of the many entrances to the realm of the Nightshade. She leaned against the railing of the artificial oasis. Astonished she made it that far with her head still on her shoulders. Slumping against the railing, all Zephyr could do was laugh at herself. Who knew searching for scrap metal would ignite a cosmic war? She mused ruefully, imagining the trio of monsters chasing after her, swooping in for the kill. I guess if you play cosmic games, you should expect cosmic consequences for your actions. Zephyr wanted to curl into herself and rest. She didn't want to deal with whatever the hell she'd gotten herself mixed up in. Her knees started to buckle at the enormity of the consequences she was facing, alone. If she wanted to live through the night, she had to get out of Chicago and into the underrealm, fast. However, her moment of peace was short-lived. Out from the shadows, a dark green goblin with matching bat wings sprung forward. It cackled as she gasped in shock. Striking Zephyr in her solar plexus was a wooden stick as thin as a toothpick, but as powerful as a sledgehammer. Zephyr yelled, chest and ribs aching from the impact of the goblin's staff, as she was thrust up and over the ledge of the railing. She sunk underwater, fighting to reach the surface, the pond stretching downward for what felt like an eternity. Usually, she could use her magic to weather the transition between realms, but as it was, Zephyr was unable to think rationally, panic overtaking her good sense. She would pop up, then sink back down, never having learned how to swim without the aid of the supernatural. She was certain more demons were lurking in the shadows, teasing her, waiting for their turn to inflict some unwarranted punishment, all because she mistook a key for some easy money. As if on cue, the harpy landed, feathered body and head the color of a barn owl, sandy white and light brown. Her large, unblinking black eyes glowed with malicious intent, as the goblin shot up into the air and landed on her left wing, where a human arm should be. Next came the griffin, who reared up on his lion paws and transformed into something almost human, his tail curling around himself to cover his exposed sex. The demons laughed cruelly at Zephyr, as Zephyr fought for air, unable to free herself from the clutches of the ice-cold, putrid green pond water. Bird Brain doesn't know what she has stolen, a feminine voice hissed, no doubt coming from the harpy. She'll die soon enough, and we'll take it from her. Her loss, our gain, and a win for the Nightshade. A booming masculine voice chimed in, his hearty laughter bouncing off the freezing wind. Soon, very soon, but what if she responds? What if the other be killed? Will she come back for revenge? The goblin chirped, dagger-like teeth gnashing together in a painful symphony. The trio of shapeshifters continued to argue until Zephyr couldn't hear them anymore. Maybe it was for the best. Zephyr didn't want to hear them squabbling over how they'd kill her. She convinced herself to welcome death. If she died, and they took the key, she would be released from any responsibility for what came next, Zephyr reasoned. It was a weak excuse not to fight any longer, but it was enough for her. Zephyr stood, struggling to breach the water's surface, instead sinking like a rock to the bottom of the bottomless portal. Soon, her corrupted soul would return to the realm of the Nightshade. She'd be reborn or reshuffled into a new body. That was fine with her. It took her over 100 years to perfect her soul in the form of a crow. Maybe, in her next life, Zephyr would be a vulture so she could pick at the griffins, harpies, and goblins' bones when the big guns from downstairs got wind of their betrayal. Maybe. As Zephyr felt her consciousness wavering, her only thought was about how she wanted to strangle her best friend. And with that, that is the end of my reading. Again, you can get the ebook for free by signing up on my newsletter or sign up for the giveaway to get an exclusive paperback edition. Zephyr's Curse is the beginning of a trilogy called the Grimoire Chronicles that will start releasing with Scale of Justice starting in 2024. So if you like urban fantasy mixed with some romance and cosmic consequences, make sure to check it out. Thank you.
That was fantastic, Zelda. Really enjoyed that. Great voices happening there and some fascinating world building. So yeah, be sure to sign up on that form so you can get into the goodies for the giveaway and also grab the ebook if you'd like. Our next reader is Lydia Prime. Lydia Prime is a New Jersey-based horror author that teams up Lydia Prime is a New Jersey-based horror author that dreams up absurd, creepy, pointy-teethed monsters for all to enjoy. Over to you, Lydia.
Hey, I'm Lydia Prime. I'm going to be reading from my story, Hazel Hill, and From the Depths. To catch you up just a little bit, Una is the main character. She's just arrived to a halfway house run by Dan and Mira Sullivan. And after a pretty uncomfortable entrance and exchange with a couple of the housemates, the one host, Doug, interjects, trying to kind of call order and get like a house meeting going. So yeah, that's where we dive in. So to get started, as you've discovered, we have a new member joining us today. Una just finished a 3-month stay over at Mount Montgomery. We'd like you all to do your best to make her feel welcome. Doug placed his hands on his knees and leaned into the circle. Liana, that means not being a bitch. He winked. The boys erupted with laughter, and Liana, clearly offended, crossed her arms over her chest, turning her nose up at the lot of them. Let's go over the house rules, Mira slurred. Who wants to begin? Doug glared at her, the anger in his eyes obvious to everyone in the room. But no one said a thing. Una imagined that it must be hard to telepathically scold someone, but if looks could kill, Doug would be a murderer. Jeff, how about you? His features softened as he turned his attention to the boy on his left. Jeff, with a PH, nearly jumped out of his dark brown skin when Doug called on him. Una noticed a long, discolored scar on his neck as he straightened in his chair. She wondered if he'd lived on the street for as long as she had, or if it was just one of those things that happens when active addiction goes incredibly south. Yeah, all right, so gotta stay sober, no drugs, no alcohol, nada. Rando drug testing whenever they feel like it. He pointed to Mira and Doug. So you might as well stay clean, at least while you're here. Getting caught sucks. Everyone nodded in agreement. You get a printout each week of what house chores you're responsible for. Do them or don't, but you probably should because you don't want to get kicked. No fighting, no stealing, no breaking shit. Go to meetings or therapy, whatever brainwashing you prefer. There is actually a curfew, but whatever. It's better than being locked down entirely, right? Gotta be home by 10 p.m. If you're not, you're locked out and tested the next day anyway. So don't even try playing stupid games. You're the only one who loses in the end anyway. Doug thanked Jeff, and the room continued to discuss upcoming events, plans for the week, and when to have their schedules back to their respective hosts. Mira zoned out a quarter of the way through the meeting and started to drool on herself. Her arms were limp against her sides as she slumped back in the chair. Doug dismissed the group and excused Mira's behavior as being a little under the weather. No one believed him, but they chose not to question it. Una hopped out of the comfy seat and offered Doug some help. He declined in a much rougher voice than she'd heard him use so far. She felt a twinge of anxiety, but assumed it to be displaced aggression from whatever was happening with his wife. As Una walked past the couple, she felt a creeping sensation as it prickled against each of her vertebrae. Shivering, she hurried out to the main hall and patted herself down, unable to find her phone. It must have fallen into the chair I was sitting in. Una weighed the options. head to her room without her phone, and hopefully it might still be there later, or chance going back and dealing with whatever attitudes the Sullivans offered. She looked back and took note that the previously wide open doors had been closed. Maybe they left already? Una tiptoed to the door and gently laid her hand on the knob. The latch hadn't been secured properly, allowing it to push open. With fingers crossed, she leaned in to get a better look around. For a moment, she thought she saw Doug's eyes grow to 5 times their natural size and turn from a light brown to inky black. He towered over Mira, a strange red appendage extending from his chin. It glowed over her face, pulsing rhythmically, frozen to the spot. Una watched helplessly as the illuminated stem seemed to warp the structure of the woman's skull. In place of perfect cheekbones and a jawline that could cut diamonds, Mira's face had stretched, lengthening until it tapered out to an impossible opening. Her pristine, velvety complexion was replaced by a slime-coated, scaly texture. Doug, or whatever it was, scanned Mira's arms, exposing her thin, veiny flesh to his strange body length. Her hands no longer resembled anything Una could recognize. The digits had fused by the middle knuckles, and each had a dim, bulbous light on it. On the end, similar to that of her husband's. Mira stirred, exhaling a misty cloud that became ash as it fell. Doug let out an animalistic groan that made Una audibly gasp. He looked up, feeling as if he wasn't alone, but saw no one. Una dove behind a couch, covering her mouth as she tried to steady her breathing. She heard Doug take a few cautious steps in her direction and thought she could still see the vermilion orb glimmering overhead. The footsteps moved away, allowing Una to release her unconsciously clenched fists. Closing her eyes, she repeated her treatment-mandated mantra and stood up. There was Doug, lifting Mira over his shoulder. Both their faces were normal, no strange lights anywhere, let alone extending from their bodies. Una was confused, to say the least, but chalked it up to a defect of her mind. Back at Mount Montgomery, she'd learned that not everything she saw could be trusted, and that was part of what made her seek numbing agents. Dual diagnosis, the term they used for people like her. She was afflicted and addicted. She waited for the couple to pass before running up to her room. It was going to be a long 6 months. But yeah, I'm going to cut it off there because going any further would be a lot. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Lydia. Wow, you really had us on the edge of our seats. And folks will know where to go and find your work. We did post the website and also the handout that'll have more information. Thank you very much for that freaky little reading. Our fourth reader today is Trish Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Trish.
Hi.
Trish Wilson is the media director for The Horror Zine, where she has written fiction and interviewed authors, including Ramsey Campbell and Josh Mallerman. She won a Best Short Story mention on the Solstice List 2017, the Best of Horror for Invisible, which appears in Zippered Flesh 3. Take it away, Trish.
Okay. I'm going to read from my short story, my short fantasy comedy, The Care and Feeding of Your New Pet Dragon, which appears in the charity anthology Through a Scanner Farkly. Fark is a community website created by Drew Curtis that allows members to comment on a daily batch of news articles and other items from various websites. Fark is also a great place for snark. I absolutely love it there. Anyway, you can find the anthology on Amazon, and all proceeds go to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. And now, my story. Okay. The Care and Feeding of Your New Pet Dragon. And I wrote this one as E.A. Black. Congratulations. We at the Ministry of Uncommon Beasts are delighted to announce you are now the proud owner of a new pet dragon. Whether your dragon is a classic Germanic worm or one of the more exotic breeds, like the Turkish Kazilik, all dragons require special attention in feeding, cleanliness, and health. Your dragon should be between 6 and 8 months old if you purchase one from a reputable licensed dealer. Feeding. Dragons are primarily omnivores and require an extensive, well-balanced diet. A juvenile dragon eats approximately 50% insects, 30% meat sources, and 20% vegetation. They are also very picky eaters, as you will soon discover the first time your dragon spits a snoutful of cabbage and corrosive saliva into your face. Favorite insects include crickets, mosquitoes, cockroaches, Middle-earth vomiting flies, and Atlantean sea mantids. Dragons have a special liking for rampion, Eleanor, fang geraniums, and fruit from the blistering fig, but those are extremely expensive and are available only during the summer months. They prefer raw red meat, but have been known to eat chicken and turkey, even though dragons are related to birds. They aren't above a little cannibalism. Do not feed them fish because fish gives them gas. Dragons are primarily self-cleaning. They require several gallons of water per day, so be sure to have an industrial-sized barrel handy to store liquids. They can drink from a stream of water, so don't be surprised if you see yours attempt to drink from your hose as you tend to your garden. Juvenile dragons are especially fond of eating your hose and gnawing tooth marks into your fountains and garden statuary, so take care that they do not destroy your property. Improperly trained or malnourished dragons may eat your plants, so be careful that none of them are poisonous. Some of these plants include poinsettia, lily of the valley, ficus, spurting blood orchids, and the defecating tulip. More poisonous plants are listed on the Ministry of Uncommon Beasts website. Should your dragon ingest any of these plants, immediately administer syrup of viper venom, warning, will induce vomiting, and take your pet to the dragon veterinarian for emergency checkup. Salve made from lard and ground leaves of the Aphelis plant, also known as king's foil or Acea aranian, may be administered to blistered lips. If not properly fed, dragons will nibble on wood as well as your carpet and drapes for the fiber content. To prevent damage to your personal property, feed and water your dragon every day. Should dark splotches appear or scales shed more than normal, please contact your dragon veterinarian. Cleanliness. Dragons groom themselves with their barbed tongues to smooth their scales. Acid in their saliva removes rough patches. A healthy dragon will have a smooth, shiny body. Dragon scales may be carved and sharpened to make tools such as eating utensils and daggers. These items command an impressive price on eBay. They have also been ground into powder for protection and love spells and are used as an energy supplement. Trim your dragon's claws once per month. Never declaw a dragon. This practice is cruel and illegal. It leaves your pet without the ability to grip prey, climb trees and telephone poles, or to walk properly. Wings should be taut like a sail without holes or tears. They should also be translucent when held to the light. Opaque spots on wings indicate injury. Make sure that your dragon has sufficient room to maneuver in your home so that it will not injure itself. A typical wing spread of a juvenile dragon is approximately 4 feet. Your dragon's breath should smell like brimstone. If you detect the scent of ash or burning plastic, seek immediate medical attention. Both indicate a serious vitamin deficiency. Teeth should be about 3 inches long and pointed. Regular cleansing with a brush and metal pick should remove stray bits of meat, vegetation, carpet, and splinters. Sharpening with a metal file once per month is permitted. When ill, dragons fart fire. Should this occur, douse the flames and take your pet to the vet. Their body should be typically vivid green or smoky gray in color. If you see ashen or dark splotches, or if scales fall out frequently, your dragon may have a sulfur deficiency. Please see our nutrition page on the Ministry of Uncommon Beasts website for more information. Dragon saliva is highly corrosive. It breaks down tissue the moment it makes contact with it. Should you get any on your skin, immediately wash with mermaid's milk and apply a salve comprised of petroleum jelly and ground leaves of the Aphelis plant. It is preferable to not cage your dragon, otherwise it becomes depressed and claustrophobic. Allow it a section of each room where it may spread its wings without knocking over lamps or breaking glass. Dragons prefer perches. Alternative pet shops sell dragon trees. Also purchase a clawing board so your dragon will not be tempted to claw your walls, ceiling, furniture, or guests. Juvenile dragons teeth, so have wooden planks made of oak or cherry handy. You don't want your new pet to chew on your valuable bedroom dresser. It is unwise to have other pets such as dogs, cats, and birds in your home, since your dragon will likely eat them. When you own a dragon, it should be your only pet, or purchase another dragon to keep it company and to give it someone to play with. Play. Dragons bore easily and need constant entertainment. Favorite pastimes include playing fetch, hiding in boxes, and chasing laser pointer lights. If properly trained, your dragon may light candles and oil lamps as well as roast meat. Dragons left to play unattended outdoors have been known to chase down and eat humans and small animals, so please keep your pets indoors at all times under constant supervision. A thick silver chain around the neck makes an excellent lead. And that's where I'm going to stop. Other parts include dealing with typical problems and a solution. So anyway, thank you very much, and you can find that book on Amazon.
Wow, thanks, Trish. People were really enjoying that. So I think now everybody wants to know where they can get one.
A dragon. I want one too.
Well, I'm sure that we will share that link when we figure out where to acquire our dragon eggs. We will send out that link to the Strong Women Strange Worlds mailing list. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, we have a couple more readers today. Our fifth reader is Holley Cornetto. Holley Cornetto is a writer, librarian, professor, book reviewer, and transplanted Southerner. Her novella, We Haunt These Woods, was published by Bleeding Edge Books. In addition to writing the Horror Tree's newsletter, she reviews for Publishers Weekly and the Horror Tree. She teaches creative writing at Southern New Hampshire University, just down the street from me. Holley, take it away.
Hi. So I'm going to try not to break out into giggles, but if I do, just know it's because I'm thinking about those defecating tulips. So bear with me. I'm going to be reading the prologue and part of chapter 1 from my novella, We Haunt These Woods. So thank you for the introduction. And here we go. Tell me what you remember. Jennifer sat across from me in a booth at the TikTok diner. It was past midnight and the place was mostly deserted. A jukebox stood in the corner covered in dust. With its faded orange seating and cracked gray linoleum, the whole place looked like a relic of the past. Maybe that was why I'd chosen it for our reunion. I'd tried not to think of her for years and mostly succeeded until that picture popped up on my social media feed with the header, People You May Know. She'd changed, that was certain, but I still recognized her. That photo stirred feelings long dormant within me. Feelings I thought I'd left behind. Imagine my surprise when not only did she remember me, but agreed to meet. I hadn't planned on talking about the past. She'd brought it up first. Nate! The urgency of her tone brought me back to the world, back to the moment. Yeah? Tell me what you remember. I swallowed hard, considering my answer. How much did I remember? How much of what I thought I knew was real? I remember the night at the bonfire when we found out about Franklin. I had a crush on you. Did you know that? I was nervous. I looked away, feeling a rush of heat on my cheeks. I thought the confession would be easy, that we could just laugh it off. But there was something in that look she gave me, something there that reminded me of the old Jennifer and of the way things used to be. But she wasn't the old Jennifer, not anymore. She had so many piercings in her face that she resembled a pincushion. From the looks of it, her hair had once been blue, but it was now faded to green from neglect. She was still beautiful, no doubt, but the last 20 years hadn't been kind. My stomach fluttered. I'd been so anxious about seeing her again that I hadn't been able to eat. I just paced around most of the day, drinking coffee, wondering who she'd become and what she'd think of me now that we were older. Maybe that's how it was with first crushes. Maybe deep down you always felt a spark. What else? She turned to the seat beside her, rummaging through her oversized purse until she pulled out a prescription pill bottle. She shook a pill into her hand and swallowed it without water. The song, I muttered, drifting far away. I can't forget that song. Chapter 1. I never realized growing up how privileged I'd been, sheltered from problems like divorce, bankruptcy, or negligent parents. My childhood had been near perfect, one that others might envy. Every summer when I was young, my family visited our cabin at Lake Swart, tucked up in the foothills of northern New Jersey. The water there was pristine, the bluest blue I'd ever seen, and the shore was covered in bone-white sand. There were 14 lake cabins in our little community, and in any given summer, most of them were occupied. It was the same families every year, and we got to know each other well during those summers together. It was tradition for our parents to throw a beach party the first night at the lake. They spent the evening drinking beer, and we made s'mores. It was when everyone caught up with each other, and all that we'd missed since last summer. S'more night was legendary. My 12th year at the lake, the bonfire was blazing again, sending up smoke and debris that twirled through the evening sky. The whole beach was illuminated. From the boombox by the folding chairs, a DJ promised to play all the hits from the 70s, 80s, and today. A big red cooler, half buried in the sand, was so full of Bud Light and Pepsi that the lid wouldn't close. Families started to trickle in. Brandon arrived first, wearing a crimson-tied hat and cargo pants, his pockets already bulging, no doubt from whatever rocks he'd collected along the way. He was tall and lanky, with dark eyes and skin. Brandon was an Eagle Scout, living embodiment of the old Boy Scout motto, "Be prepared." He fancied himself a cartographer, always drawing maps and doing calculation. Although I couldn't see it, I was sure he was wearing his prized possession, the compass necklace he'd gotten last year for his birthday. He walked over and sat on the rock nearest me, holding out a hand. We gave each other 5, up high, down low, and this time I was too slow as he jerked his hand away. It wasn't quite a secret handshake, but we got a good laugh out of it. Lee joined us at the circle next. He was older than the rest of the lake kids, making him our leader by default. He wore a red bandana and a Van Halen t-shirt with a lollipop tucked behind his ear like a cigarette and a Walkman clipped on his belt buckle. Lee was a rebel, troublemaker. He reeked of cigarette smoke and danger, and we all followed his cues. He stood with his foot propped on a rock across the fire from us. "Check this out," he said, turning to show off the rat tail he'd grown out. It went down past his shoulders, but it was better than the mullet he'd had the year before. Brandon shrugged. "Cool, I guess." Lee opened his mouth to say something else, but was interrupted when Sarah and Jennifer arrived. Those sisters, they were opposites. Sarah, the older of the two, was tall and loud. She liked makeup and manicures, and by the way she looked at him, she also liked Lee. She wore sandals that were too fancy to be out in the sand and a pair of rolled-up denim cutoffs. I wasn't fooled. Those shorts had probably cost more than my entire closet worth of clothes. Jennifer was short and shy, with long dark hair to her waist and bangs that hung across her forehead. When she laughed, she covered her mouth with her hand. I wondered if this would be the summer that I told her I loved her. Jennifer sat on the rock beside me. My stomach fluttered. Marcus, the youngest of our summer regulars, arrived last, and a collective groan went out from the group. "Oh, great, the loser's back," Lee sighed. "Oh, come on, he isn't so bad," I replied. Marcus was unapologetically a dork. He loved science fiction and fantasy and was practically obsessed with the X-Files and conspiracy theories. Brandon opened a box of graham crackers and passed them around. "I heard Franklin's family isn't coming this year." I looked around the group. None of the others reacted. "What happened?" I asked. "I don't know. His family moved or something," Brandon answered, unwrapping a chocolate bar. "They won't be back this summer or maybe ever." He passed the chocolate to me. "That sucks." I broke off a block and passed it to Jennifer. I blushed when her hand brushed mine. I wondered if she had a boyfriend. "That isn't what happened," Marcus said, taking the seat to my left. "Shut up, Dorcas. Nobody cares what you think," Sarah snapped. Lee leaned forward, feigning interest. "Well, come on, weirdo. What do you think happened?" I knew where this was going. Lee was looking for fuel, something he could use to tease Marcus for the rest of the summer, and that dope Marcus was dumb enough to give it to him. Marcus cleared his throat, speaking in conspiratorial tones. He vanished. They never found him. And that's where I'm going to leave off. Also, while we're waiting for our host to come back, this is going to be in the giveaway. So make sure, if you're interested in a copy, to fill out that form.
Wow, Holley, way to leave us hanging. That was a great line. I loved all the dialogue leading up to it, too. I think a lot of us were right there on that beach with you. So super cool. Thank you so much. Our final reader today is Violet Castro. V. Castro is a 2-time Bram Stoker Award-nominated Mexican-American writer from San Antonio, Texas, now residing in the UK. As a full-time mother, she dedicates her time to family and writing Latinx narratives in horror, erotic horror, and science fiction. Look forward to hearing your reading, Violet.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. I had to unmute. So wonderful to hear everyone. Thank you for joining in. I will be reading from The Haunting of Alejandra. So you can V Castro Stories, Twitter and Instagram, V Latina London. All right, here we go. We must listen to the women who came before us. We change the future by unloading the sorrow of the past. We sever the cord of generational curses. Some cords are meant to shrivel to blackened, dead flesh. They are our blood, but we are not them. We do not have to accept it. None of it. Flor Castillo, Soldadera and Mother, 1919. Alejandra, Philadelphia, 2020. Alejandra sat beneath the square shower head in their newly refurbished bathroom. Her feet touched the glass and her head leaned against the tiled wall. The bathroom was the only place in the house where she could lock the door. She felt numb as she imagined her mind and body crumbling, her every cell fragile as limestone. The image came to her of a skull, like the ones from centuries ago at the bottom of cenotes in Mexico. For the last 4 years, she had been that skull. The doorknob jiggled. Mom, Mom, hurry up. A small voice called for her over and over. Just 5 minutes, just 1 minute. Please, just 1 second alone to breathe. She looked towards the door. Her body trembled with the overwhelming desire to shrink to the size of the blood clots trailing down her legs. Her period arrived like clockwork every month, the only thing she could predict after her tubal ligation. No more children. Never again. She already had 3 children. Each birth had left an open wound where each of those pieces of flesh had been hacked off from her. Since then, Alejandra's inner world had felt like the scary part of death. They say nothing exists after the brain short-circuits to darkness and the heart squeezes out its last bloody tears. And that was her. For years, she abandoned herself to be a willing sacrifice to please everyone around her. And now nothing existed within her anymore. Even her own hand was not a hand at all, but a blade she used to carve her heart for anyone who asked her for it. Beyond the beaded veil of water on glass, a white form appeared in front of the towel rack. Alejandra didn't have her glasses or contact lenses on. It was likely just steam. Or was it her towel? She could have sworn she'd hung it on the hook behind the door. She glanced in that direction. The towel was there. She turned back to the rack, her neck popping from the quick moment. The form lingered. From the center of the silhouette rasped a voice so minute it might have come from her own mind. You want to end it. Let me help you. Alejandra whispered back with a sensation of hot water burning her throat, choking her. No. The steam billowed with the water. It reminded her of the day she tried on wedding dresses. A loud bang on the door made her head jerk and legs tense as they folded into her body. Alejandra, it's dinner time. Are you coming down to cook? The kids are hungry. Her eyes broke from the amorphous figure in the door, then back in. The figure was gone. Give me a minute, she called out as best she could through her tearful confusion. All right, but you've already been there over 20 minutes. Matthew's voice brought her back to the present, the reality she wanted to escape from. His voice had a childish whine. His footsteps down the stairs could be heard through the door. She was relieved he would not be lingering in the hallway to question her further. She rose from the floor to rinse blood from her legs. Her duties waited, leaving her no time to wallow. Now all she could think about was hope her children would actually eat what she cooked. Or would it be another mealtime of watching them spit it out? Every time they did, a feeling of rejection burrowed into her like termites. Alejandra turned off the water, stepped out of the shower to dry herself quickly before they called to her again from outside the door. She couldn't stand to hear any of them say her name again. Her anger would flare up, aimed at herself for being weak. Sometimes her knees threatened to buckle when she thought of how she didn't own a single thing in the world. She had no money of her own, no job, Her name was not even on any of the bills. Half her life lived a shadow. As she ran the towel down her leg, she noticed a slimy substance on the glass door where the hallucination had appeared. Well, it's probably from the children, she told herself. Alejandra put on sweatpants and a t-shirt, then wrapped her hair in the towel. Before leaving the bathroom, she paused with her hand on the light switch. Something deep inside her, as a lining of her uterus, told her what she already knew. What she had seen was not a hallucination. The presence of something or someone lingered in the heat of the room. She could tell by the way the mist parted and shifted. Alejandra held no illusions of having any value in the world, but her emotional and mental instability felt monumental, like a large wave in the distance. She felt it gaining height and speed before it crashed into the shore and pulled her into the depths of the unknown. She switched off the light, then rushed to the kitchen. The staircase cracked beneath her feet with each step. She paused when she reached the bottom. The stained glass window in the front door caught her eye. Fractured yellow and red lights splayed across the floor in broken shards. Her maternal instinct told her to sweep them up to prevent anybody getting hurt by them. A darker instinct told her to use one of them on herself, to no longer feel the pain. But even if they had been real glass shards, would she have the energy to grab one of them and plunge it into her flesh to end it all? She remembered the encounter in the bathroom and the imagined words. You want to end it. Let me help you. She placed both hands over her faces to block out the images and sounds her mind was conjuring that could not possibly be real. Only her pain was real because it was always sitting on her shoulder. From the kitchen, the voices of the children bickering and Matthew telling them to stop broke her thoughts again. You're just adjusting to the new house. Get a grip, she told herself. 3 weeks ago, they'd moved from Texas to a quiet, leafy suburb of Philadelphia. Matthew had gotten a new job that offered a salary and bonus they couldn't turn down. And this large 6-bedroom house was one of the many luxuries afforded in this new position. She tried to overlook. She didn't much like the neighborhood, the school-run commute, or the repairs that would inevitably fall to her to oversee. But the move made sense for Matthew, and the space was more than what most people could hope for. Be grateful. Don't start, Alejandra, she told herself. It was meant to be a long-term putting down roots kind of home. So why didn't it feel like home? Thank you. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have an amazing Easter.
Violet, that was amazing. Wait till you see the comments that you're getting in the chat. And yeah, a lot of people are going to want to be looking for that to find out what happens next. That was absolutely riveting. Thank you so much. So this is also the last, the conclusion of our readers today. I'd like to thank everybody who came. It was fantastic to have you all here.